big boys, right? We got back-to-back heavyweight fights finishing this one off. And, Walt Harris, same camp as Roma Delice, been working a lot with Eric Nixick to get that cardio up, to get that output up. You see him working on those big kicks again. That's how he was finishing good fights, right? A lot of knees, a lot of big combos coming in with, different level changing in that sense. And I think that's where he's got to keep the fight, right? We saw Overeem really take advantage of him being on the ground, and that wasn't much of a battle at all. And we see that with Overeem when we touch on Sooky, right? Overeem's ability to just deal with the damage early on. Again, if he doesn't get finished early, chances are Overeem likes to carry on into the fight, and you're going to have to really, really break him in a striking battle to finish him. And now we're talking about two guys like Marcin Tybura and Walt Harris, where, again, right, very, very similar clash of styles. I think Marcin Tybura has been finished in weird ways, like the Sooky fight, right? Getting backed up against the fence, really taking big shots, thinking he can handle them, losing wind pretty early, and then it was just a slowly but surely kind of situation. But the thing with Tybura is I think that he needs to be a bit less willing to take those damage shots, because his overall MMA game seems to be very sound at this level. And when he works in the level changing, when he works in some groundwork, ground and pound, he's got pretty good cardio for the size that he brings to the UFC. And I think that's one of the best features he's got. And when you look at Tybura's record, right, it's just so pristine at this point. You have to consider him a true veteran of the UFC. And after losing to guys like Abdurakhimov and Sooky that we just talked about, spitting off 4 straight wins against guys like Spivak, Grishin, Rothwell, and Hardy, those are really, really good wins. I was shocked at some of the lines that I'd seen for the Greg Hardy Marcin Tybura fight, because I just think that, like we said, Tybura is such a good MMA fighter. That's where Hardy, in terms of gas tank and all that, it was so smart for Tybura to play into that and make sure that he tired him out in a big way. Same thing here. I think that Walt Harris dictates a very similar pace. I think he's going to want to keep the fight standing, land big kicks, big combos. Tybura's going to have to eat those and walk through them, right? If he doesn't take those big shots, similar to Sooky, doesn't get pushed up against the fence, flying knees, all these kinds of things you got to watch out for. I think Walt Harris is in for a tough fight in the clinch game. I think he's in for a tough fight against the fence. Now, again, strength and conditioning coming out of Extreme Couture right now is on another level. I think that's where they've been turning guys into really, really different athletes. Watch out for Dan Ige, man. I'm telling you, I said it in that fight leading into Gavin Tucker. That was one of the most insulting lines I've ever seen in my entire life. And, that was one I wish I put my kids' college fund. I'm just kidding. But that was one where I was very, very, very surprised, because, Gavin Tucker being Canadian, seeing where he's fought in the past, Danny Gay deserved much better than that. Now, going into this one, it's a similar thing, right? I think we're just going to see a lot better athlete come out of Extreme Couture. And this is a case where if Walt Harris can prove that he's the better athlete, he might be able to sneak away that first round with big strikes. And then after that, it's about keeping Tybura at bay. If you can tire him out with good body shots and knees, things like that, you're going to be able to strike with him for 3 rounds. I think that's where Walt Harris doesn't get tired. I think that unless he has to really work up against the fence, work his way back to his feet, either, from his back or up against the fence on the ground, those are the areas that people get most tired, especially when you're such a striker at heart. And obviously when you're a big time heavyweight. So, Walt Harris supports that really interesting record, right? That I think it's 13-9 record. So obviously has that back and forth heavyweight type of old school record there. But with Tybura, now you're looking at a guy who, unless he's losing to some of the big names, especially when he's younger, 21-6 is a very pristine record. The Tim Johnsons now who are destroying Bellator don't look so bad, right? That's where Tybura, in terms of becoming a better athlete, that's where I think he really can make a huge change in his UFC career. And not that he needs to. Right now, he's sitting at 4-0 with the potential 5-0 fight against Walt Harris. I mean, if there's a dark horse heavyweight right now that, some of these prospects who are up and coming should either want to fight or should be even, trying to get into those really gritty areas with a guy like Tybura, who's pretty much shutting down the competition right now. So in every area outside of the striking, I got to give the edge to Tybura. I think that if Walt Harris becomes a better athlete and is able to avoid a lot of that clinch work early and is able to dish body shots and get this fight, in those really, really, really rangy spots where it's point battles with power shots, that's where he can win this fight, especially early. If he lands big, he can finish the fight on strikes just like Sooky did early. But On the flip side, if he doesn't, he does get tired either throwing himself out in terms of too much output, or it gets taken down, it's going to be a long fight for 3 rounds, even if that happens early or in the second, because I think Tybura has that ability to keep a certain pace for 3 rounds. It's going to be a heavyweight pace, but it's going to be a pace nonetheless that should allow him to get the fight to the ground at will. Now, if you look at some of the stats that we got for these guys, I mean, we can pretty much back that up with, Walt Harris's 72% takedown defense, most likely against some of the guys where, we're not looking at the Overeems and the Tyburas and those kinds of fighters of the world. That's where I think that Walt Harris has had most of his issues. The Spivak fight, the Olenek fight, like this is the guy that the UFC is like praying to see again, so many round 1 finishes, round 2 finishes. And, the guy is just exciting. And when the fight goes outside of the first couple rounds, yeah, it becomes a bit of a situation. No contest split against Andrei Arlovsky. Like, there's been so much potential of Walt Harris being this big fighter in the UFC for them. So I think that's why he's getting so many chances. I mean, he doesn't go on these big losing streaks. He finds ways to, recover and win again. That's why I like Walt Harris as a fighter. And I think Tybura now is a perfect test for him to see where his game's at. Can he string off another win before going 0-3 after fighting guys like Overeem and Volkov? So let's take a look at those lines. You got to give Tybura the edge in terms of just MMA skill and recency bias. But, the line hasn't moved much. Tybura opened up as a -155 favorite. Looking at like a -165, -175 right now. Walt Harris coming in as a +124 opener. Now sitting at around that +135, +140 range. And I mean, there you go. There's something accurate right now on Bet365, which is Walt Harris as the +120 dog, and Tybura coming in as a -163 favorite. So, like I said, man, if you believe any of these lines are going to hit right now, I would head over to Bet365 and make those bets, because those lines should move based on some of the movement you're seeing everywhere else on the planet.